Well, howdy everybody. Welcome to the shop. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it. It's nice to see you back. Well, there she is. Gearbox is all back together. I learned a few things the second time putting it together. I'll get into that in a minute. The missus bought me this new plate for Christmas, so I've got it on. Some final thoughts on rebuilding this lathe and the things I've learned that I'd like to pass on, the mistakes I've made I'd like to pass on so you guys don't make the same mistakes. There is an old adage, some people say it's a Confucianism, that a wise man learns from his mistakes. But what my daddy always used to add on, that as he would say, was always forgotten on that, was the end of it, which is a wiser man learns from the mistakes of others. So I hope I can pass on my mistakes to you so you don't repeat them. Where to start? I don't know. It's been a fun project. It's been a journey. It truly has, and I have had fun doing it, and I've enjoyed making the videos for it, and I really can't wait to start making stuff on it. I already have made one little thing, just playing around with it the other day, but well, I'll get more into that later. On the gearbox, since that's where I had the biggest problems and the biggest challenges the first time around, and I broke that tooth. In hindsight, I believe that was my fault. I truly believe I made a mistake. When I was reassembling it, I didn't pay attention to something I didn't really catch on to, I think, until I was doing it the second time, and I broke that tooth. Excuse me. And what that is that on that gear cone, and I can't show it to you because the gearbox is back on here, the first 5 gears in the gear cone actually have a dowel pin going through them that lock that keyway in alignment, so that once you get that, as you're pushing that shaft in, this middle shaft on the gearbox here that all the gears sit on, you have to put those gears on basically one at a time. And as you keep feeding it through, you might have that gear on there, but you're not engaging that keyway into that gear until you're way down working on the other gears. And you have to make sure you spin that gear to align with that key. Spin the keyway on the gear so it aligns with the key, so as you keep pushing the shaft through there, it aligns up on them. Well, on the first 4, you've got that dowel pin going through them that locks them in place. So once you've lined up the first one, you've lined up the 4th one, and the 2nd and 3rd one, conversely. The last 2 are the 22 tooth and the 18 tooth, and it was the 22 tooth that I broke, or the 18 tooth, I'm sorry, I broke the 18 tooth. And then this very last one is the one that has the long gear that has the tapered pin that goes through the shaft. It doesn't have the keyway on it. When you get to the point where you're trying to engage the 22 and the 18 tooth gear onto that key, you've got almost every gear on there. I think there's one missing is all, but now actually I think it's in there too, and you're just pushing that shaft the rest of the way through the boss on this side of the gearbox. So you've got to rotate those gears to make sure that keyway on the gear is lined up with the key on the shaft, so that the shaft slides through nice and easily. The first time I did it, I don't think I checked that, and I don't think I had it lined up good enough, and as I was tapping it with the hammer, I was off just a little bit on that 18 tooth, and I broke it and didn't realize it until I had the gearbox back here on the machine, and it was making that thumping sound. So that was something I learned the second time around when I was putting it together. The other thing I learned, I had asked for help off the internet. I'm going to digress a little bit before I get to putting it back together. I wanted to replace that keyway because it was a little chewed up on the end where that broken tooth was, and I thought I needed to replace it. So I actually asked for help here on YouTube, and then one of my followers suggested I go to practicalmachinist.com, which I was already a member on there, and I went there and put a question for help out in the South Bend section, and I got a lot of good feedback, a lot of good ideas. One of them worked for getting that key out. I think that key was glued in by somebody with some Loctite, I think. But one of the things as I was getting frustrated that I couldn't get that key out, I decided to just start putting it back together and look at some other issues while I kept mulling over what to do about that key. So one day I put the shaft back in the gearbox with no gears on it, and I noticed that when it was in place, it was hard to turn at one certain point in its rotation. It turned real freely about 7/8 of the way, but then there was just that little 1/8 of an inch in diameter of the shaft that was really hard to turn. So something was dragging. And I think it was on this end of the shaft. No, I think it was this end of the big end of the shaft. There were some dings on this end of the shaft, and there was actually some dings in the brass bushing that I took a jeweler's file and cleaned those up. And once I had cleaned those up, that shaft turned real nicely by hand all the way around with no gears on it. Once I had done that, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to put this back together and see if I can turn it by hand. So I took that same jeweler's file, cleaned up the key that was pretty chewed up. The 18-tooth gear, the new one that I got, was a very, very tight fit on the shaft. Very tight fit. In fact, I couldn't move it by hand. I actually took some 400 grit sandpaper and a wooden dowel and cleaned up the inside a little bit to where I could put it on by hand, but it wasn't all the old gears that came off this shaft. I mean, they just slid on with no problem at all. There was a lot of resistance on that 18-tooth gear, the new one. A lot of resistance getting it on there and getting it into place. And once I had it rotated in the right spot and it slipped over the key, it was very hard to get on. But I was able to get it on, got it on right. And even though the end of that key is a little bit chewed up and doesn't engage that tooth 100%, it probably does 50%. Once I had everything on that gear shaft and all the gears were in place and the big gear was pinned with the taper pin, I could rotate that by hand all the way around. So I decided, well, I'll put the tumbler gears back in and put the tumblers back on and try it. So once I had the gearbox totally reassembled by hand off the machine, in every position I was able to rotate that shaft 100% all the way around by hand. Backwards, of course, because coming from the machine side, you're working a lot of, it's like a transmission, you know, and the engine side puts on more stress than the outfeed side. So going backwards, I could turn it by hand. I couldn't turn it by hand on the feed side. So I decided to put it back on here, It runs really good in every position. It's nice and quiet. I'm happy with it, and I think that 18-tooth, I'm not worried about that 18-tooth gear is what I'm trying to say. Even though I know it's not 100% engaged on that key because the end of that key was chewed up, I think it's going to be okay. So I'm not worried about it. If it gives me troubles later on when I try threading and put some stress on it at that range, then I'll deal with it then. But right now I'm not worried about it. And to be truthful, I don't think I'm going to be doing a whole lot of threading on this machine. I'll be doing some. Yes, I will be doing some. But I don't think I'm going to be doing a whole lot. And what is on that second gear is really some really fine threads that would probably be better off cutting by hand than on a machine. Just saying. I don't know. But I'm not a machinist. I'm a hobbyist, and I'm learning. And believe me, I'm learning, and I know I'm learning. Oh, there were a lot of little things I learned, and I can't think of all of them right off the top of my head. For sure, definitely in the gearbox, take your time putting it back together. Make sure everything is lining up properly, and don't break a gear like I did, because I think that first time around, I think I was tapping on the shaft with a drive pin and a hammer, getting it in there all the way, and I don't think that 18-tooth gear was lined up on that key exactly where it should have been, and there was just enough of a bevel on the end of that key that it busted through the gear instead of spinning the gear into place. So I truly believe that was my fault that happened, and not something that was wrong with the machine. This plate that my wife bought me for Christmas was about a 1/16 of an inch smaller in both directions, so the holes didn't line up. I had to waller them out a little bit with my Dremel tool and a teeny die grinder bit, but I got it on there. It doesn't fit perfectly, properly. I mean, there's some bowing up here, but yeah, I don't care about that. Like I told you in the very first video, this isn't going into a museum anytime soon, not even in my lifetime, so if it ever does, those guys will fix it properly because they're probably professionals. In general, all in all, I'm real happy with it. I'm excited. I'm excited to start making things. Like I told you, I did make a little thing the other night that I'm going to do a video on, probably next week. We're going to start doing a lesson plan. We're going to work through some lesson plans that I have on how to use a lathe properly, and it's going to be making projects. It's not just going to be putting metal in and making chips to be making chips. We're going to learn as we build things, build tools that we need and other things, and we're going to work through that. Not 100%, not totally, through that book, but I'll explain more of that when we get into that in the first video in that series. But the final thoughts on this, I'm happy with it. For my first time ever rebuilding a major piece of equipment like this that is delicate, it's been fun. It's been an educational process. I'm glad I did it. I learned a lot. And like I said, it was fun. It was fun doing it. It was fun making the videos for you guys to watch, and I've enjoyed a lot of the comments that you guys have left. One thing, searching around on YouTube, I did notice that it seems like the outside gears out here are skipped over by a whole lot of people, including the rebuilding book that I bought to help me get through this. Doesn't cover that, how those gears go. And because I wasn't making the videos when I started tearing it apart, I didn't have any pictures to go by, but I finally did find the proper pictures and some old manuals that I found online that helped me put that back together properly. I hope that helps you guys in the future that choose to do this. Some upcoming projects, I need to build a chip tray for it. The chip tray that came with this when I bought it was just way too big. It's too big and bulky. It doesn't need to be that big, so I'm going to build a smaller chip tray. But I do need to get that done because cleaning up the other day was, after making that little project, was kind of a mess. I can't think of really anything else to tell you guys other than that it's been a blast. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed all the comments you guys have left. All the input that you've given me has been very helpful. I do want to give a shout out to the website practicalmachinist.com. And I'm going to say it again, practicalmachinist.com. I've been a member on there for years, but I've always just been a looky-loo until I started this project. When I actually started posting stuff and starting threads, and I got a lot of good input off of that website. If you're a hobbyist like me or a professional machinist, that's a site to be a member of. They cover everything that you could think of in a machine shop, from rebuilding and refurbishing old machines like this all the way up to how to use brand new multiple $100,000 high-tech CNC machines of all kinds, not just a milling machine or a lathe center, but also EDM, which is electrical discharge machining. It's for everybody. There's something on there for every level of machinist. So I definitely recommend you go get on there and at least check it out before you sign up. It doesn't cost anything to sign up and become a member, but there's a lot of great information on there, and I got a lot of help on this. I got a lot of information on how to try to get that keyway out, that key out of that keyway on the shaft. None of it worked. There was one idea that I was going to try, and that was heating it up, because I do believe somebody might have used some Loctite on that key in the key shaft, and that's why it wouldn't come out. But before I worked up the nerve to do that, I went ahead and just put it back together and played with it, and it's working fine. So that's good. I did stamp here into my plate, and I stamped the original catalog number and the bed length. Didn't do as good a job as South Bend did on the original plate, but it's legible and you can read it. One thing I was going to do, and I forgot to, on the back of this plate, I was going to pull a Smithsonian institution trick. And it's something I saw in a documentary years ago when they rebuild machines to put on display. If they have to make a new part, they will label that part as a reproduction, non-original reproduction. And I was going to write that on the back of this plate with a magic marker so that people in the future, if they ever took this off, would know that this was not an original plate, that it was a reproduction put on there. Although I have kept the old plate, and if I ever get rid of this lathe, I'll give the old plate with it. But there it is. Again, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for all the input you guys have given me. It's been a wonderful journey. And now it's time to take the next step and start making things. Building stuff, building tools and making stuff with this lathe, which I'm really looking forward to. Might even do the first one tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. I'm a busy person with my job, and very active in a service organization at the local level and the district level, and that keeps me busy quite a bit. And then just a family, and now it being the holidays right now, I haven't had a lot of time to play. So I hope to get some in over this New Year's weekend, but we'll see. Please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it if you haven't already done that. Please do that. If you have done it, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I'm only at 39 subscribers right now. I say only. To me, that's a lot. When I started making this first video back this summer, I never even thought I'd get that far. But to all you guys you folks who have subscribed to my channel, I thank you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I hope to someday get to the point to where I can reward each and every one of you somehow. I don't know how yet, but I hope to get there someday. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I would appreciate that very much. If you like the video, press the like button. If you don't, press the don't like button. Now, those two things don't mean much to me, and I really don't care. But please do subscribe. It's real easy. Just hit that little red button right down at the bottom of the screen here that says subscribe. Have a great new year, everybody. Be safe, be careful, and I wish the best for each and every one of you in the upcoming year. I know we always kind of look at the new year as a brand new start. I don't. It's just another day in the continuation of life. But in essence, it is somewhat of a bit of a start that we start at the beginning of the calendar. But really, I don't change that much on that one day. It's just another day, and life goes on and continues going. So be careful. Have a great one, and we'll see you real soon. Thanks for stopping by. Bye-bye.